Alright, what is going on YouTube? Redbull Wololo 4 second qualifiers, the final chance to get into Redbull Wololo 4. We will have Nili versus Spring here in round number 4. It's going to be a best of 3 set over here, with Runestones being the first map. As we jump in here, we will have Nili on the right side as Red Vikings, and left side is going to be a Magyar's pick for Spring in yellow opening scouts. Now, Magyars can definitely tear apart Vikings early on with their mobility if the Vikings player is not Vod. On the other hand, the Magyars player will have to go for skirms quite early on, otherwise he's going to struggle against the spear and archer opening of the opponent. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Spring having an archer range come up real fast, and indeed that is the case over here. For now, Nili is gonna get housed for a moment, goes for the Vos on the left side, and he will have his front Vod as well quite fast. Neither of the players went for a single economical upgrade right now, so it's gonna be quite combat heavy at the beginning. No Bidax, no Horse Color on either side. Now, here's the deal. Once Magyars sort of lose their ability to be proactive with their mobility and try to raid early on, Vikings will have a massive advantage, because Vikings, if you don't aggressively attack them, they will just outboom you really easily, and I think Spring has sort of missed an opportunity to sneak in here on the right side with a scout and potentially pick off a Volingville. Now runs into the Spearman here, and I did mention this before the set that I believe that this set could come down to whoever makes less mistakes, because Nili has been playing cleaner, and he played very clean. He had a very competitive set against Miguel last week. On the other hand, Spring has had some big upsets pulled by him over the course of Redbull Wololo, so Spring always has upset potential in it, and as I mentioned, things like this for Nili, like having all of those Veils idle for a long time, may not be enough, or may not be something that he can afford against a player like Spring, and I think there is a hole here. Is there a hole there, or not? Now, the archers and spears are coming towards Spring's base. He is actually opening archers, which I think is a mistake here. You know your opponent has better archer numbers. I think you kind of have to open skirms here. Spring is doing a nice job keeping track of that army over here. And considering that he's going for a scouts build, he's focusing a lot more on food, which could allow him to pile up a little bit better count of food and potentially propel him to better castle age timing. And with a better castle age and those castle age Magyar Knights, that could be a devastating force against his opponent. Loses a lot of HP on the scouts though once again, as we're gonna have the archers and skirms move in. Let's see the fight over here. Spring uses the archers and skirms to pick off the spearman as he should, and I think Nili's force here is gonna get cleaned up. Nili is also getting closer and closer to clicking up to castle age, but it seems like Spring might actually beat him to castle, although Spring is gonna have too much food and not enough gold here. He added Veils to gold a little too late now, and you will see that he's gonna be down by 100 gold when he reaches the appropriate food count. Still, this allows him to add a couple more skirmishers, and Magyar Knights with +2 attack and lead skirms will be a devastating force. And remember that Vikings are somewhat one-dimensional, so early game it's all about their archers. If the Magyar player goes for a skirmisher heavy play with a couple of knights, that could be devastating, and I still believe there's a hole here. Isn't there? There might be some sort of small tree or bush behind that one, it's hard to say, and I would have assumed that if there is a hole, Spring would have run in, but you see, this is what I was referring to with Spring. His castle age advantage could have been much bigger had he added the Veils on gold a little earlier. You see that he is still not clicking up, He just now clicked up, and at the exact same moment as Nili. Oh yeah, there's a tree here, indeed. It's actually one of these small bushes. So, yeah, Spring's castle age here was heavily delayed by the fact that he added the Veils to gold late, and because of that, the castle age times will be identical. That's an advantage for Vikings, because the key thing for them is that they don't want to be in a position where they get forwarded by elite skirms, like elite skirms and mangonels. With the Vikings, you sort of want to be the guy that forces the fight at the opponent's base while you boom behind. That's what you want to achieve. Nonetheless, Spring is going for double ranges, but he's not making any more units, and this is going to be a triple range Cav Archer play here. He's just now going for bloodlines and fletching. Interesting decision. The Cavarcher's mobility could definitely be something that's hard for Nili to deal with, but considering that Nili's base is pretty much double layer walled everywhere, I don't see those Cavarchers being able to inflict damage on Nili's economy. And if they don't inflict damage, then eventually Nili is just going to outboom his opponent, especially because triple range Cavarchers is gonna be very, very heavy on your economy with Magyars that don't have any eco bonuses. So I like how Spring is using that leftover scout that's like 2 HP from Kuro to just look around the map a little bit. Hello? Capture Age? Okay, so you see that he's scouting for relics, he's scouting for neutral resources, something I appreciate quite a lot over here, as he's also harassing Nili's woodlines. So far no villager has been killed. In this game, Nili goes for crossbow botkin. The first question is if Spring goes for crossbows, but it doesn't seem like it. He's getting botkin in, and it's gonna be elite skirm and crossbowman, so it looks like he's not going for a straight cav archer. In this case, I like this move, because triple range crossbow and archer together will be quite tough to fight against, especially when elite skirms will be in. And then you can go for a forward siege workshop and go ahead. Now, Nili is adding Viking Knights over here, but that plays right into the hands of Magyars, because eventually Spring can also add his own knights, and in fact that would be a good decision to make to potentially snipe future siege weapons. But at this point, if Spring just makes a combination of crossbows and elite skirms, that could be enough to clean up Nili's force, and now he thinks about switching into cav archers. He's still missing husbandry. The bigger deal for Spring is that he's missing Birax and Horse Color as well at the same time. So Spring's economy is going to be heavily strained over here, and you see that just one knight can do so much damage, because Spring's base is pretty much unwalled. So Nili actually takes down a Vil here. In exchange, there's a chance Spring is going to clean up some of this army over here, but without ballistics, that's not gonna be the case. And I feel like Spring, instead of grouping up the archers and having like one big group of archers and skirms that just breaks through here and pushes into Nili's base, he's sort of trickling in units, and he lost his group over here. There's a chance he's going to lose his units over here as well, because the knights will be able to jump on a force that's almost exclusively skirmishers. And even though the knight doesn't have a single upgrade on them, you see that it's gonna be enough to help clean this force up. And now I think Nili has all the advantage that you can possibly have. He's 2 TCs, and while the mobility advantage is definitely on the side of Magyars here with the knights and the cav archers, mobility is not a factor when your opponent has 2 layers of walls and he's booming 3 TCs behind that one. In that case, you just need brute force power. And Nili is gonna go elite skirm as well, realizing that his opponent is actually very, very heavy on cav archers. Spring is trying his best to get some Veil picks here from Nili, and apparently Nili is busy microing this stuff over here, and that is why he didn't notice that he lost 2 Veils back at home. I guess it's still better for him. He actually loops around with the crossbow group that survived the battle on the north, and I mean, Spring is down by 8 Veils, and we did mention that both of these players have some good strategies set up for their home maps, most likely, so the Runestones game might be the decider eventually in this set, and it very much seems like Nili has the upper hand in this one. Spring's Magyar's pick is not bad, but it requires a fairly open map for the opponent to be really usable, I would say. So Nili has an 8 wheels lead, handcart, double birax, and horse color, plus 3 TCs finished in a couple of moments, and basically all the freedom to protect his base, with a lot of woodlines at the back for safety, save gold mine. Whereas for Spring, look at this. Nili is hiding this group of crossbows in the corner, and 5 minutes later he will actually use them once again. It's all about Spring is looking for them, but Spring can't find them, and when Spring is going to start marching forward, Nili is going to unleash these crossbows once again for raiding purposes, as Spring will try to get in here through the weak walls of Nili, but walls behind should be able to delay this one a tiny bit. and the elite skirms will be able to get some good hits in. They also have ballistics, so that's -3 cav archers, or up 2.5 more likely for Spring here. And Spring is still looking for those crossbows. Nili feels like this is the right time to go back to that wood line, but in this case, it's not going to work out well for him because his opponent doesn't have any lumberjacks there, and that's a lot of cav archers from Spring. Spring is going super heavy on cav archers, but here's the deal. Look at Nili's resources. I mean, Nili has gold to go into Imperial. So it's possible that, like, I'm not sure if Nili is idling his thesis intentionally here, and, you know, just trying to go for a relatively weak eco Imperial Age, or what's the plan, but he could think about Imperial Age. Because at this point, indeed, there's a market coming in. I'm not going to say that I'm a fan of going up to Imperial with only 16 on food. On the other hand, Nili could finish the game with Imperial, with Arbalest and Bracer, and then potentially a castle on the forward should be able to finish the game here. Now, Spring will try his best to get through here, and this could be a nice spot. You can actually take the hill, and you can fire down hills, or you can try to raid the wood line, and Spring is doing his best to pick off vills. The problem for him, as I said, is that Nili has a lot of space to fall back to, and Nili is actually going 5 on stone. So, what is Nili up to? He's off from gold. Nili is actually off from gold, and that could be a bit of a concern for him. Because now, the mobility of the cav archers could start becoming a factor, not because of wood control, it's because of gold control. These vills might need to garrison the TC here, and honestly, if Spring is stretching out Nili's defenses to the far left, and forcing him to chase to the left, then the cav archers can try committing against these gates, and if they ever get through these gates, it's gonna be a nightmare for Nili to clean that up. And this is a good fight for Spring, I would say. He's got the Mightier Knights with Bloodlines and +2 attack. He's got no defense upgrades, but I mean, this is still sort of a now or never style fight for Spring over here, and it looks like it's gonna be a never, because Nili's got enough elite skirms. Spring didn't really focus down the crossbows with the cav archers, and because of that, the knights got destroyed pretty easily. If those knights had +1 defense, it would have been a completely different game, but now it's over, I think. Because Spring has lost so much here, 16 vills differential, still not a single eco upgrade for Spring over here. And Nili apparently is taking into pikemen, so he's expecting knights, but reality is that his opponent is very far from actually pumping out a large amount of knights. It looks like Nili's gonna play it safe and not go for a greedy castle age. He's just gonna keep booming. He's at 19 vills advantage. And now Spring's base is gonna be wide open for raiding, scale mail. Nili is actually going for 5 on stone, so there's a chance that he might not even make a lot of pikemen. He teched into pikemen, but he might end up going straight to Berserk. Although I'm not sure, like, Berserk Elite Skirm would be a good combination here, but you need a good number for both. Otherwise it's not gonna be great. Nili loses the monk over there, but I mean, Spring's army numbers aren't impressing me by any means. That's gonna be a nice micro. The knights will jump on the mangonel. Skirms will do their best to pick off the remaining cav archers as some pikemen join the fun. Over here, Nili is taking into +2 defense, so he wants to play this one with pikemen, and there might be a slim chance here for Spring if Nili isn't able to regroup his army. If Nili is able to regroup, he should have no trouble here, because his economy is like light years ahead compared to his opponent. But on the other hand, if Nili isn't able to regroup, he's in danger of being overrun by knights and cav archers. Still, at this point, Nili is playing this one safe. He's got scorpions, he's got pikemen, and I don't think that Spring is gonna have a chance to overrun him at this point. So, Nili is going to hold this little hill over here, firing down hills. Cav archers will try to dive in and snipe the monk to prevent conversions, although there was, I think, still a conversion here. Yeah, that is a converted knight because it has +2 attack on it. So, that was a quick conversion there from Nili, and he's not gonna get another conversion in here. Still, with the crossbows firing down hills and the pikemen in the party, the knights will evaporate really fast, and once again, Spring is just unable to push deeper into the opponent's base, and the problem is that, as I said, without an aggressive push, the Vikings will just outboom you. Spring knows that as well, and Nili takes a rather convincing game number 1 over here. I feel like Spring isn't playing his best today. He has had some struggles against AR12 in the previous round, and this game also wasn't super duper clean from him. He definitely want to play aggressive with Magyars over here. I just feel like it's so hard against Vikings. He didn't want to play on Vikings mirror most likely, so that's why he chose something different. He felt like he needs a Civ advantage, at least in certain portion of the game. But as I said, with Magyars, your real power comes from being able to harass the opponent's vills quite early on with your scouts, and then potentially leverage that harassment and beat your opponent to Castle Age, to Knights or Elite Skirms in this case. Spring's Castle Age was heavily delayed because he was late on gold, so if he reached Castle Age like half a minute before Nili, it could have been a different game. Alright, so now they will go to Spring's home map over here. Let's see what he has on his mind in this one. Nili in the previous qualifiers actually reached the round of 16s. Let's see if he can do it right now as well. So far, it's looking pretty decent for him. The first game was relatively one-sided in his favor, so now it's going to be a 1-0 scoreline where Spring is going to pick his own home map. It's still going to be hidden free pick in terms of civilizations, so they can go whichever civilizations they want, but they can't repeat the ones that they already played. So anything but Vikings for Nili and anything but Magyars for Spring in this one. So let's see. We don't have a lobby just yet. We're waiting for players to get going in this one. So at this point, let's take a look at what maps would be available for Spring to potentially choose from, and which of those could be reasonable to play. So here is the deal. Okay, now we're actually getting the Liquipedia brackets, so brackets will be easier to look at right now. So, in terms of maps available, we have Acclivity. That's something that I could see Spring winning on. 14, it's not on me. It's the players that need to get the game going. Eruption is more of a Nili map, I would say. Frigid Lake is also a place where I would favor Nili, so I would on Greenland. Lowland, it's a 50-50. We're gonna have a Marketplace, that's, I think, a 50-50. Meadows a 50-50. Mountain Range, I favor Nili. Northern Isles, I favor Nili. Ring Fortress, 50-50. And Runestones was already played in this one. Who's that AoE 2 player? It's got 4K viewers. Probably some sort of Taiwanese or so person. There is a lot of like Asian players that actually stream on Twitch. Like these are not high level people; they're more like variety streamers in their own respective regions, and they are having a lot of viewers because of that. So I don't necessarily think it's a high level player. It's more like someone that's popular in general and not necessarily a pro. All right, we'll have Spring playing Saracens once again. This is the exact same thing. I don't like this from Spring. Okay, let's talk about this one. First things first, Spring did the exact same thing versus AR12 in the previous set. Saracens in yellow on the left side frame and Magyars for Nili on the red. Exact same matchup that Spring played before. But the difference is that Nili saw that game. Nili was spectating that game, preparing for his next opponent, so I massively dislike Spring's decision to potentially bring in the exact same strategy that he used in the previous set. Now, there's a chance he will tweak it, so in the previous set he went for triple range archers and sort of a Saracen fast castle triple range archer style play over here. But so far Nili is actually struggling against that scout a little bit, and I think Spring is gonna commit, and Nili knows that he's going to lose a will, or is he gonna lose it? Look at Nili. Look at Nili, man. He would have trapped that scout anyways, but he actually takes that down, and we're gonna have scouts coming in here for Nili to be aggressive, and Spring seems like he's going to do the exact same thing. Wall his wood line off, go for archers, and the fast castle play here. So Nili knows exactly that what Nili needs to do here is that he needs to get an early market up, sell his stone, go up to castle age, and also do skirmisher defense. And then Spring is gonna have a very hard time against that. Simultaneously, scouts could actually help quite a bit for Nili at being proactive and just raiding his opponent, slowing down that Saracen fast castle. Still, Spring is going up with a market soon, and you see that he's sending a huge amount of villas to gold. So it's sort of going to be an early Castle Age Saracen all-in style play. We will see if he ends up adding additional TCs behind that, so sort of turn a very aggressive early Castle Age into a boom. But anyways, for now Nili's scouts won't be able to accomplish much. Spring is only one range though. I wonder if Spring this time will go for a stable instead. Because I'm fairly certain that Spring is aware of the fact that Nili saw those games, as Nili is gonna bring in the skirms. Nili is also doing the exact same thing that AR12 did, but he's actually going for walls as well. Although those walls won't matter much against Saracen archers, they will just get through there very easily. Nice micro from Nili over here, picks off, or at least is about to pick off this spearman. And indeed, look at that, he's going to send in the scouts. Yoinks the spearman, the other spearman is gonna go down as well. And now the skirmishers will be able to fight here, and this is big. Spring actually had to make a defensive tower, which basically prevents him from selling his stone in this one. Nili is still far from clicking up to Castle Age though, and that could be somewhat troublesome for him. So, let's see what we got. We got the scouts of Nili still lurking for prey, as Spring's gold miners are kind of stuck in here. He's once again going for a triple range archer build. I really dislike the way that he's playing this. I mean, he's doing the exact same thing that he did in the previous game, or the previous set, against his opponent. And Nili knows what he did in there, so the fact that you're doing the exact same thing as the previous round is something that I heavily dislike over here, because, you know, even if it's a strong strategy, your opponent probably knows what you're up to, and it's gonna be relatively easy to counter that way. So you see that Nili is actually gonna go for triple range skirms, most likely. He's gonna be behind quite a bit in terms of Castle Age timing, but not by an enormous margin. You see that when the wheels drop off the hunt, if Nili went for the hunt a little earlier, he could have been up a little faster, but nonetheless, he's gonna click up to Castle Age here, and he's gonna have triple range skirms, and you see that since he's being proactive and just harassing these vills, he knows exactly that Spring needs to wait until Crossbowman to fight this one, and it looks like Spring will just completely ignore it and march forward with his archers. Nili's gonna do some contingency walls, a defensive tower on the wood line. Would always be mandatory here for Nili, but the most important thing is +1 defense for the skirms, and just massing skirms back at home. Saracen crossbows, when they only have botkin and no defense upgrades, they're not amazing against skirms that have +1/+1. Skirms can hold their own for some time, buying Nili time to get up into Castle Age, and Spring, now I like this a lot more. This is not something that he did in the previous game. He's adding a stable for a couple of knights to pick off those skirmishers. That actually looks a lot better than his crossbow push, and those knights could be very, very helpful over here. Spring is going to play 1 TC for the time being because he made a tower in here. Crossbows sort of trying to take a fight over here against the skirmishers, a little bit of a dancing around here. Nili just needs to delay this one, so he doesn't need to take an amazing engagement here. He just needs to use the town center and the skirms to keep this push out, but guess what? There is going to be a knight now coming in, and since there's a hole here, thanks to the Saracen crossbows getting through the walls, this is going to be a little bit harder for Nili to hold than he initially anticipated, as that one knight is causing a lot of chaos, and I did mention that a defensive tower on the wood line is almost mandatory for Nili over here. It looks like he hasn't gone for that, and now he's gonna pay the price. This game might be over. Because right now Nili doesn't have the wood anymore to make a lead skirm, and Spring, if he takes this fight here, he can camp down the bottom of the tower, and that should be the end of those villas inside. And it's surprising that Spring did the exact same thing in a previous game. Nili saw that, yet Spring still does the same thing, and Nili doesn't have an answer to it. That's so awkward. I would have thought that Nili saw it and he's like, okay, he's doing the exact same thing, I have an answer to it, but apparently not. I believe that the way that you have to fight against Saracens here is that you have to use your market as well to buy yourself up. You will still be behind the opponent in terms of castlage timing, but you can't afford to be like 2 minutes behind. You have to be lagging behind by like 40 seconds or so at max. Because then you have the opportunity to hold off your opponent for that time and then push out a little later. But now Spring is just spamming crossbows over here. It's 21 crossbows versus merely an army of 7 here for Nili, and Nili doesn't even have bloodlines on those knights. Those knights won't be enough. No bloodlines on the knights, and not even a single defense upgrade. You see that those knights are getting just massacred. Now, here's the deal. At this point, Nili is able to clean this one up, but his eco has suffered really badly from this. The good news for him is that his opponent was still on 1 TC, so that buys some time for Nili to potentially regroup, and he's only behind by 3 villas. In exchange he has Horse Scholar, so I'm not saying that that it's actually going to be a thing here for Nili or Spring just yet, but still, the second wave is already coming in indeed, and Nili is gonna have so much pressure put on his eco. His knights won't work here. That's the problem that he's facing. He needs at least +1 defense, preferably +2 defense, to be able to take this fight, and as long as he doesn't have that, he won't be able to take this army down, and he can't even just go pure skirms because his opponent has knights and crossbows here, and I just feel like that's the end of the story here for Nili in this game, and indeed Springs takes game number 2, and we can all go back to what we discussed in the beginning of the set, that this could come down to who wins Runestones, because both of these players seem to be very confident on their own home maps. It's very surprising, however, that Nili actually encountered the same strategy that he saw from Spring in the previous round, because Nili's round ended a lot faster than Spring's one, so Nili was able to spectate some of the games, so he knew exactly what Spring was gonna do with Saracens here. Spring did the exact same thing, yet Nili didn't have an answer for it, and with that, Spring actually takes game number 2 over here. The good news for Nili is that we are going to his home map over here, which basically means that he should have the upper hand in that regard. Alright, let's go back to the lobby and see how things are going. After that, we'll probably go for 5th round games. We will see who we are going to cast in these. Okay, so Spring versus Nili, game number 3 over here, for a chance to play against who? That's the question. The winner of this matchup would fight against Valas or Alive. So a pretty decent Finnish player Valas or a long-time Brazilian player alive would be the next opponent of these. So far we don't have a game yet, but Nili right now is figuring out what map to choose, so that's why we're sort of waiting for the players to get ready in here. So yeah. And holy smokes, 1 hour ago, I once again missed out on that. A $50 donation from TriPath. Thank you so much. I appreciate that a lot. I am usually very, very potato, realizing that there was donations going on because I'm not using any sound. And I usually don't look at the screen that I have these alert thingies on over there. But thank you so much, TriPath, for the $50. I appreciate that a lot. It means a lot, and it's very, very helpful. So thank you so much for that. Anyways, let's see what Nili and Spring will settle on in terms of civilizations and the maps. It's gonna be Nili's home map. Northern Isles could be a thing, and here's the deal. Nili probably doesn't want, like, he got to the round of 16s last time, so he probably doesn't want to play his best home map because he wants to hide something for the upcoming rounds as well. But he may be in the need to pull one of his better strategies here because he's in danger of getting eliminated, and that's something that you probably want to avoid happening at this stage. This is, I think, round of 64, if I'm not mistaken. Round 4 should be, yeah, round of 64, I believe. Is it? Yeah, exactly. It's a round of 64. So, Nili got to round of 16s last time. I don't remember what Spring did in the first qualifiers, but we will look at it once we have a bit of a break. So, both players are ready in a moment, and we will jump into the third game here. We're going to Mountain Range. I did mention that when I was discussing the maps that I believe Mountain Range is a very, very Nili style map. It's slower paced. It seems like Spring wants to go for these aggressive strategies. So Magyar's opening on Runestones, then going for what did he go for here? He went for Saracen play here on Meadow. So it makes some sense to say that, hey, you know, you want a slow-paced map, and Mountain Range is definitely slow-paced. It's by far the slowest paced map of the entire tournament. And we are gonna have Tatar's Mirror over here. Oh boy, oh boy. Springs love his Cav Archers. Let's see if we're going to see some of them over here for him. We're going to have Nili on the left side playing as Red Tatars, and the right side is going to be Spring as Yellow Tatars over here. On Mountain Ridge, this is actually going to be a very, very stalemate battle, because in the middle there is basically no resources, just relics, and whoever controls the hill is going to have a massive defensive advantage. Over here, Springs moves out very early on here for the hunt. The reason why he can afford to do this is because on this map it's extremely rare that you have early aggression coming from the players. Usually it's pretty much a fast castle play. It looks like Nili is going to open scouts, but the reason why he's opening scouts is because he just wants to have some mobility, some chance to harass Wills, but most importantly because he probably wants to go straight Cav Archers. And if you go straight Cav Archers, it's probably better if you have the stable up early, so you can get Bloodlines and Husbandry upon reaching Castle Age. Whereas Spring opens Archers on the other side, so Spring might actually want to be a little bit more proactive here, but both players are just heavy on food. You see that Nili is just food and just wood. He sent away all his wolves from gold. Nili hasn't sent a single will out for these huntables just yet, but that's something that he will eventually end up doing. And Spring is not fully wood, so there is a chance for Nili to try and do some harassment here on those vills. It's very unlikely that he will be able to land many vill kills. Maybe one could be a thing. Nili had 20 seconds of T-saddle time, so that basically means that he falls behind by a villager or so, as Spring in exchange runs into the TC fire, and the best thing that he can accomplish is lame one sheep from the opponent here. Nili's gonna go for a range, so indeed this is gonna be straight cav archer play here from the Hippo, whereas Spring, he's going to take a fight here against the Scouts. This is probably as good as it gets. Scouts have their HP grinded down, and it seems like Nili is still heavy on Scouts here, so he's up to 4. Spring needs to be careful not to lose Vills here to the Scouts' aggression. The Spearman apparently is not sure what to do. He could have killed some Scouts over there. So that's the first Vil kill, I believe, here for Nili, and those Spearmen freaking out actually made this much worse for Spring. If he had that Spearman attacking before, these Scouts could have been way weaker, and probably some of them would have been dead anyways. So double range now for Spring, as Nili still has 3 Scouts over here to secure the ridge, and now he's bringing in Skirms. So Nili is actually very heavy on the feudal age aggression over here, kinda sensing that Spring is playing open, and I don't like how Spring is playing open. He did that in the Runestones game as well. If Spring had walls here and here, this Goldmine would be safe, and I would say, okay, Spring will beat Nili to Castle Age, and the crossbows with Thumbring should be able to destroy everything that Nili has here. But here, in this case, I'm no longer a fan of this one for Spring, because the thing is that Nili could just find that gold mine if he actually sends a scout that way, and Scouts and Skirms should make it much harder for Spring to access that gold. That being said, that's not actually happening, and it looks like Spring will probably add some knights over here. Maybe even step lancers could be an intriguing idea here for Spring. Knights are probably better though for him here. He will still play crossbows, but the knights are just added here to scare away those Skirms. Nili is not gonna be that much behind in Castle Age timing, but that's gonna be like a 1 minute or so deficit. Spring once again is going without eco upgrade, so this is gonna be a super aggressive play once again from him. He is not even grabbing a single eco upgrade, and I feel like Spring just didn't commit enough to walling. This map is all about wall up and just going to Castle Age. Spring did the second thing, going to Castle Age, but the wall up part was missing, and I guess now he's getting punished really badly by 3 Scouts and a couple of Skirmishers. This is not supposed to happen here on this map. Feudal Age aggression should not really be a thing because the map is so easily wallable and it takes so much time for your opponent to get to you. Now, considering that it's only 1 Scout and a couple of Skirmishers, Spring is going to get a Knight out unless he's housed. And he's going to be able to take this fight. Remember that Nili is still 2 minutes from Castle Age. So, as much as Nili was able to take down 2 Vills from Spring, we should also add that Nili's base is wide open, especially on the left side. So, the crossbows here that already have Thumbring could actually be devastating. Nili is gonna go for Elite Skirms. This army will end up getting cleaned up by the Knight, I believe. Nili actually found 1 more Vil kill, so he's up to 3. But in exchange, Spring is coming in, and all those Vil kills that happened here for Nili, as Nili finds another Vil kill here with the Skirms. It's so bad for Spring that he's losing that many Vils. The good news for him is that he's able to retaliate by killing Vils at the opponent's base, and that's gonna be the longest 1.5 minutes for Nili's life. Remember that his tournament life is on the line, and in the previous qualifiers he was 1 game away from defeating Miguel and playing in the decider games. This time, if Spring's aggression here cripples his eco, this could potentially be Nili's end here, and Spring realizes that Nili hasn't garrisoned his TC. Oh boy, this could be huge. This could be huge. What a disaster for Nili. At this point, it might not even be worth discussing that the crossbows will go down, because this might be game over here. This might be game over, especially if those crossbows find the gold mine. The crossbows just need to sort of take down the Vils as many as they can on the gold mine, and this may be over here for Nili. So, like, at this point, Nili's economy is in absolute ruins. There is cav archers harassing the wood lines, the gold mine. Just look at this absolute slaughter. 16 Vil kills to 4, and Nili can't even afford the Elite Skirm, which means that with good micro, Spring could just take those skirms down as well. And he's doing it. He's doing it, and this is a stomp now. Like, Nili's gonna get Cav Archers in, but his economy is absolutely ruined. Spring does have 0 on food, by the way. Like, Spring is going all in here. That's the only chance that Nili has. That Spring is killing Vills, but he's not actually increasing his own eco, so hold on here for a moment. While this may seem fancy from Spring, and he's killing Nili, I think that the reason why Nili is going to resign is because he doesn't know that Spring has basically no economy behind this one, but Spring mounting an all-in assault here. This is the definition of an all-in, and while Nili was able to get the early advantage here, he delayed his castle agent. That proved fatal, and these Cav Archers were chilling here. If these Cav Archers run past here, that would have been a disaster. Spring has absolutely torn apart Nili's eco here, and this is why I said that while on paper this should be Nili's set, Spring always has upset potential in Redbull Wololos, and he's the one advancing to the next round. A heartbreaker for Nili, I would say, especially because in the first qualifiers he was so close to getting into the deciders and having a shot at qualifying. This is definitely a massive heartbreaker for him.